Fidelio is esteemed because it contains some of Beethoven's most beautiful music. It's also a piece that speaks to a kind of universal truth. The idea that human beings can overcome all sorts of adversity and come out changed, usually for the better. It's very hard to find singers who, A, have, frankly, big enough voices to cut through what is a pretty hefty Beethoven orchestra, but also people who can really act. I mean, the role of Fidelio, you know, a dramatic soprano having to pretend to be a young man in disguise before revealing herself is a long stretch, particularly nowadays, where I think audiences expect a degree of reality and believability. But it's only really worth doing when you have a cast. And we certainly have one here in Santa Fe. It's a great company piece. It's a huge challenge for the orchestra. It's a big challenge for the chorus. So in that sense, to start my time as chief conductor here with a piece that everybody is involved in and everybody is challenged is a wonderful start. We have obviously the usual strings and woodwind, but he also has a contrabassoon. We have trombones, and also the parts are extremely challenging. I mean, it's a bit like late Beethoven quartets. They're technically challenging and musically challenging, and we have to do all that and keep the orchestra quiet enough that the singers can be heard, which is always one of the issues. But it's really thrilling to see how the orchestra have just grabbed this piece and run with it, because it's such a, it's not something you get to do very often. And I think they're all very aware that they're playing a really wonderful piece. My feeling is that Beethoven was drawn to the moral of the story. As I said at the beginning, the idea of the ability of human beings to overcome oppression and a desire for freedom. You think the French Terror was in most people's lifetime still. A week before Fidelio premiered, Napoleon invaded Vienna. The first night of this piece was done in front of an audience of French troops, which is one of the reasons why the piece was such a flop, I'm sure. The other theme that's very strong in the piece is about Leonora, about the idea of the faithful wife. And Beethoven, as we all know, this whole idea of the immortal beloved and his desire to find the perfect woman. And I think in many ways Leonora encapsulates that. So it's a very personal, biographical story as well for Beethoven. The first published edition was more than 20 years after the piece had been premiered. So basically that's the version that we do now. In terms of public recognition, Beethoven's star was so much in the ascendant that you would take any piece by Beethoven seriously. As chief conductor here, it's a very specific job title. I think it was Janacek that said that the soul of an opera house is the chorus and the orchestra. He was referring particularly to state opera houses where different singers come in every night, and his point was that the core of the quality of the work that you do is what's playing in the pit every night, and to a certain extent what the chorus is doing. And of course here the chorus changes every year because it's made up of these wonderful apprentices. But the orchestra doesn't. The orchestra really, when you think about it, bears the brunt and is probably the most fixed element in the season. But I'm also responsible for the standard of their playing, not just for my show, but for other shows. And to that extent, I will constantly come to rehearsals, I will liaise with the visiting conductors, try and help in any way that I can to help them do the very best work that they can, and indeed to help the orchestra do the very best work they can. People always talk about conductors having to get the best out of an orchestra, and I always say to orchestras, your job is also to get the best out of the conductor. It's a two-way street. And I have to say this group are amazing, because it's one of the main reasons I took the job, was that it's an orchestra that deeply feels part of the music making on stage. It's not just sitting in the pit and playing their parts. They really, really have an incredible vision and integrity and passion about what goes on. I was thrilled to be asked to do this job. It wasn't a job that I was looking for. I have an orchestra in London. I have a wife and a 2-year-old and another baby about to be born. My wife is a scientist in London with a full-time job. The idea of coming away for 3 months in the summer to Santa Fe, it was not exactly an easy in terms of our family life, but Santa Fe, from the very moment that I first came here, was a place I was drawn to, not just because, as everyone will say, it is probably one of the most beautiful places in the world to have an opera house, but more because it's one of the few places left, in my opinion, that truly curates these operas in a way that is so caring and so striving always for the very highest quality. It helps that when you come in the morning, the sun is shining, the air is clear, it's a beautiful place. But seriously, that kind of working environment, also you're not being pulled away by other distractions. It is isolated here, but it's isolated in a good way. It's isolated, and it allows you not to have other distractions and really allow you to focus in on the work, which is the most important thing in our lives.